Alright, people. It is I, Corpus136, just doing a quick patch review. I know it's a Saturday. I never do this, usually because the patches don't come out on a Saturday. So, I figured I got some time. I'll try to go through it quick enough. It's pretty big, actually, considering a lot of heroes receive changes, but I'll try to be as fast as possible because I'm not intending to play on broadcast, so I just want to get it out there, you know what I mean? Talk about these changes. So, a lot of them are really big, meaning they're really going to change heroes' viability, stuff like that. So, it's funny, I just bought Solar Crest the other day in a ranked game. Solar Crest's active movement speed change was decreased by 3%. So, either you're putting it on an enemy, and it was reducing their speed by 18, or you're putting it on an ally, and it was increasing their speed by 18. So, they've changed it, so now there's not as much movement speed on it. I think that's totally fair. I don't think it's going to change the viability of the item. It really does make you very fast, but it's not really its main use. Its main use is the big armor and big attack speed change, as well as just its passive effects on you. So I don't think this matters tremendously. Move speed matters, but like 3% is like eh. A couple juggle items, I scrolled too far. Intelligence reduction in Arcane Ring doesn't matter terribly. Occult Bracelet's useless now. It's active when you get stacks from getting hit. Has decreased by half, 10 to 5. So that basically means that before, when you got hit, you got 0.5 mana regen for 10 seconds. So that would end up being 5 mana, right? It's math. Now you get half of that. So you get 2.5 mana whenever you get hit. And that's just not good enough in my opinion. It still does give 5% magic resistance, which seems nice and some stats, but like that really makes that a shit item comparatively. Spark Courage got a decrease in its damage by 2, minor. Vambrace's other attributes went down from 4 to 2. That means if you're an agility hero, you get 2 less strength, 2 less int. That does matter because it's just less health. Still good though. It's just making it more fair with some of the other abilities because it was just the best. So we're now making it like fairer with other things. Abaddon. Cast range of Mistcoil now scales up, which is really nice for Abaddon because sometimes it just felt too restricting. So it's nice to see that's going up to help with the heals or help with damage. The Curse of Avernus attack speed, which is once it activates, you get bonus attack speed. Went up by 20 at all levels. That means it helps everybody. So this affects core as well as support Abaddon because as soon as it affects them, everybody who attacks them gets that bonus. So it doesn't have to be Abaddon. So that's really nice. 20 attack speed is a lot. I guess he had a talent for time, borrowed time immolation. I'm not even familiar with it, but it got better. Whatever. Arc Warden, of course, Spark Wraith has to be better. The Tempest damage, which is the one, it depends what side of the map you're playing as. That'd be Dire primary or Radiance ult. Increase the damage, scaling up. It's the same early, but it ends up being 15 more. It's minor. I hate it anyway. Tempest Double now always spawns with full health and full mana, even if you do not have full health and full mana, which is annoying as fuck. Which makes it much harder to deal with the Tempest Double because he can just use it in the middle of a team fight, and it's going to have full health and full mana regardless of what's happening. One of the biggest changes, Berserker's Call has an increased radius of 15. Now 15 is small, right? I'm not going to sit here and tell you 15 is so big. But the fact that it has a bigger radius is so scary because he has a talent, I'm pretty sure, for increased call. Yep, he has a 100 Berserker's Call AoE further up. So this is going to add up to that. So when active 25, he also still has that 15 on top of the extra 100. It just makes it bigger. It makes it easier for Axe to get a call on multiple people. So those people who were like on the fringe of like, oh, I just avoided the call, like now it's like, no, now you're in the call, which is really good for Axe. Minor, but very changing for Axe's playstyle. The damage on Assault went up at 25 at all levels. Also really nice because that's the chance of you instantly killing somebody is with that ability. So that's really nice. And one of his talents went up by 2 armor, which is whatever. I think this is really nice. Axe has already played, so I think it's going to change his viability, but it just makes him better in a couple niche scenarios. Bane got a base damage increase of 2, which is really nice for Bane. He trades really well anyway, so that's why it's probably not going to change how often you see him, but it's just nice for him because he trades a little bit better now, which is already good. And now Bane's going to be really aggravating in lane because Bane is often played in the 4 slot that I see him. And he'll just be in lane and just annoy you. He'll just hit your support for a lot of damage and then take his health back so you can't kill him with Brain Sap. So now the fact that he does 2 extra damage just adds into that. He's just like smack, smack. So that's nice. Beastmaster, who I never really see. Bird costs more. Its health is less later. It's the same early. I'm sorry, it's less at all levels. 50 at all levels. And drums no longer count illusions when calculating healing amount, which would be a nerf to his drums as well. So that's good. Bounty Hunter, for like the 17th time in a row, got a buff. Damage on shurikens the same early, but it's 30 later, which is like, whatever, dude. Like, we just want him to just basically build an axe and just throw shurikens. That's all they want him to do. I swear to God. All they ever want Bounty Hunter to do is build an axe and just throw shurikens. And the problem is that this becomes more viable now. Like, 30 damage doesn't seem like it matters, but it's 30, and then 30 again, because it's going to bounce twice because of the ags. So, like, it's actually 60, and then it starts to matter more, and it's like, ugh. Shadow Walk is cheaper, of course it is. One of his talents that reduces damage taken while he's invis increased as well. It's like, whatever, fuck Bounty. They nerfed Brewmaster's Cinder Brew. It's actually really good, so I get that. It's just 2 at all levels. It's minor, but it's just nice to see. Bristleback needed some love. I don't see him nearly enough. Base damage increased by 3, which is really nice for farming. Base armor loss increased on Viscous. So now instead of 2, it actually ends up scaling up to 3. Minor, but when you have lots of stacks of it, when someone has 4 stacks of Nasal Goo, that's 4 armor less they have. So that's cool, obviously. And his talent for the cast range of Nasal Goo went up. So, I mean, minor. Didn't change the way he plays, but just like some love to Bristleback that'll make it a little easier at different stages of the game. I have seen him with the Ags build a couple times, but I don't see him all the time. Brood I never see. Spiderling's base attack time is improved. That means they attack faster as base. So attack speed matters, but like that means that like your base attack time, just for everybody who knows this, is a hard cap on how fast you can attack. It also affects how fast you attack at certain levels. So like if my base attack time is 1 on the nose, which is rare, I think you have to be like Alchemist with talents and stuff, but ulting. But if mine's 1 and yours is 1.35, at like 200 attack speed, I still attack faster than you. But specifically, I attack the best at like 750 attack speed, which I think is the cap. No, 550? No, I think it's like 750, whatever it is. Because that base attack time is a number that can't be changed. The only time you can change a base attack time is based on like transformations like Alchemist or Troll with his melee form. Other than that, you are stuck at your base attack time. So that's an unchanging number that has to do with how fast you attack. So reducing the base attack time makes these Spiderlings attack faster, and especially fast if they get attack speed from auras, Helm of the Overlord, for example. So it's really nice for Brood. Also a talent that increased their health, increased it more, making them harder to kill. Centaur got a lot of love. Base movement speed went up by 10, which is actually rather large considering he has an ult for move speed. His cooldown went down by 10 on ult, and Workhorse went down by 6. I never see Workhorse, I'm not going to lie to you, but the other 2 ones are really nice. Just him moving faster is going to help him in lane, kind of getting into position, out of position. And his ult being up 10 seconds earlier is really nice for saves, because usually Centaur kind of acts as a save globally when he's not there, and that's really nice for him, kind of like Silencer, and it's super cool. Strafe. This is a lot of buffs to Clinks. Burning Skeleton Archers attack speed bonus, which means that when you use Strafe, any skeletons that you have sitting around get more attack speed depending on the level. So at first it's only 50%, but then it goes up to all the way to 65%. So these skeletons will be attacking much faster, which is really nice to see because he needs that. They feel useless. Damage per arrow on Burning Barrage, which is now what is Ags, I think, went up by 10%. So each one of those arrows does more damage than it used to, which is really big for Clinks as well. So I think that's really nice. He needed that. And just a talent went up by 50 on the health, which is fine. So that's really nice for Clinks. He needed these buffs. They're like nothing crazy, but they're nice. Crystal Maiden got base armor and base int. They won't change the way she's played, but it just makes her a little bit of a better trader. She's good at trading when she uses Q. When she hits you with Q, you end up trading poorly because your attack speed goes down. But it still was kind of rough for her because she just doesn't hit very hard, and her armor's kind of poor. She was still okay, and I've won trades as Crystal Maiden, but like just getting a base armor increase by itself makes you better at trading, let alone the base int increasing your ability to cast more often as well as hitting harder by 2, right? So I think it's a really nice change to Crystal Maiden. I already like her as a support, but I'm going to play her more because of this myself. Increasing these small things in a support, trade ability, increases their viability, basically. And in a team fight, when she's ulting and someone wants to nuke her, one more armor, though it's not going to be tremendous against like a Sven smacking you with ult, you're still going to die very fast. But it does make it people have to actually give a concerted effort to hit you because you're going to be stronger. Darkseer's finally getting smacked down. Vacuum damage is decreased early, it's the same late. Cooldown was increased on Surge at all levels, earlier levels ends up being the same late. So his late game viability is the same, but early game his Vacuum just doesn't do as much damage, Surge has a longer cooldown, it makes Darkseer harder to be around in the lane, for example, which I like, because fuck Darkseer. Dawnbreaker is 10 slower, her base strength went down by 2. So base strength going down by 2 isn't tremendous, but it's nice. That essentially reduces her damage by 2, it reduces her health. The movement speed's really nice. So Dawnbreaker already has a movement-based ability, 2 of them. Her ult for repositioning, and her hammer when she flies towards it. So, I'm glad to see that they're like, oh, well, maybe we just reduce her speed, right? She doesn't need that. I've laid against Dawnbreaker a couple times, and she just feels a little bit too tanky, a little bit too mobile. So seeing her slow down and get less tanky, as well as easier to contest farm on when I'm a core and she's the 3, because she has less damage, is really nice. Dazzle, I don't see him often, so I get the buff. Intelligence gain increased by 0.3, minor but nice. I guess when he uses Bad Juju, it costs health. Like it costs the same health at all levels instead of ramping up, which is nice for Dazzle. And his attack speed talent went up by 20. I mean, so you're going to see more right-click Dazzle coming in, for sure, because now he doesn't have to spend as much health to use Bad Juju. Yeah, I think that's probably you're gonna see that. Doom, cooldown and duration of Dower went up by 5. I think that means that increases the amount of time he has armor by 5, right? So now he has a buff for armor that's 5 seconds longer, but it decreases the amount of gold he gets because the cooldown increased by 5, i.e., he has to wait 5 more seconds to get bonus gold. Actually 10, right? Because I think... Yeah, I think actually that means 10 seconds because he has to wait the extra 5 seconds. No, it doesn't matter because it'll be ready. Right, yeah, 5 seconds. So 5 seconds less off and he'll get to get gold, which means it's a worse gold-making endeavor. Still good, obviously. It's a lot of gold, but it's a nerf anyway. Maybe Doom Midas isn't exactly the build anymore. Probably not. They didn't want him to get as much Scorched Earth cooldown reduction, so it's worse now. Alright, Earth Spirit got a nerf because I see him get played in other people's games, not my own, all the time. Base int was decreased by 2, minor, I mean, whatever. But the talents on his Rolling Boulder, both of the talents on his Rolling Boulder were nerfed heavily. So distance nerfed by 125, damage nerfed by 10. And they're minor nerfs. They're not going to change his viability, but they're just making him weaker, which is necessary. Enchant Totem, the mana cost was increased by 10 levels, making it harder to cast this, which is good. The base damage talent decreased by 10 as well. They put the 50% Enchant Totem damage up to 20 and brought the Fissure range down, but nerfed the Fissure range, which is just a big nerf to Earthshaker overall. I think he's still playable, but like that base damage change, as well as the Enchant Totem going up, so 5 levels later, makes it much harder to go right-click in Earthshaker, and I am A-okay with that. It's still doable, and you might see it, but that really hurts that early game. Like, 15 was like your time to like, oh, I'm about to mess somebody up, right? I know 50% on top of the 400% that you'd have isn't a huge deal, but it mattered. As well as the damage being 10 less, it also matters, because 10 multiplied by 4. That's 40 less damage on those hits. You know, examples. Ember, base health regen was decreased by 0.75. That's a lot, actually. 0.75 is very meaningful when you're in lane, because that's every second, so every 2 seconds, just for example, to get a whole number here. Well, not a whole number, but 1.5 health that he doesn't have every 2 seconds, right? What's up, Arizona 98? Welcome. Yeah, feel free. Lurk and listen. I'm only at E, so we got plenty more to go over. This is one of my favorite changes this whole patch, both of these. I haven't got the other one yet. The other one just a mana cost increase on sleight of 10. So basically, the biggest problem with Ember Spirit right now that I see is obviously his mobility and stuff, but it's the fact that he's really hard to kill in lane for a lot of heroes. Not everybody, but a lot of heroes, because he gets too much base health regen, right? So nerfing that by 0.75, which is half, right? Less than half, actually, is really big to being able to harass him out of lane. Because he's just not going to get the same health back, or he's going to have to buy more regen. And buying more regen, as much as people are like, oh, just buy more regen. It is the correct answer often. The problem with buying more regen is that you have to spend money. So if Ember has to spend, I don't know, a stack of tangos and a salve, which is about 200-ish gold, then in the lane, and then that makes him fine. Like, that negates the entire issue. That's cool. However, you have to spend 200 gold. So now Ember Spirit's net worth is 200 less. 200 is not crazy, but 200 less. So that means Ember Spirit is going to be 200 behind the entire game. You know what I mean? Because of this. It changes the timing of his items, where his real item is going to get, like, some members go Orbit Corrosion. Some members are going to rush other such items 200 gold later. So it's going to change the timings of his items. And so this is going to be really meaningful, in my opinion. Not crazy, but nice. The mana cost isn't as big, but it's just nice because Ember Spirit has too much mana. A lot of people complain because Slight doesn't cost anything. I think 10's not enough of an increase, but I would also like to see Ember having trouble actually casting his abilities, where he has to buy more mana regen, because I don't often see Embers, besides a bottle, buy any mana regen. Like, it's rare that I see anything like that, so good. Gyro nerfs were obviously coming. Gyro is one of the most played carries that I've seen. Agility gain decreased by 0.2. I mean, minor, right? Damage and armor, but not much. 10 levels of 0.2 equals 2. So at level 10, he has, a third less armor and 2 less damage and 2 less attack speed. It's like, whatever, right? But still like it. Still love that. The stun duration of his missile is worse at all levels. Not by a lot. It's down by, like, 0.5 at the beginning, scaling up to 0.1. Sorry, I'm going closer. No, sorry, 0.25 less at the beginning, scaling just to 0.1. So the early was nerfed more, the late was nerfed slightly. It's a minor thing, but Homing Missile definitely stuns too long. So it's just nice for everybody to be able to be stunned, just be over it, you know what I mean? Flak Cannon, which is one of the reasons he's a good core right now, the cooldown was increased dramatically early. It's almost the same late, just a 2-second change. But his big deal is that Flak Cannon actually reached really far, and it makes him act like Medusa. So the fact that it's increasing the cooldown means he can do it less often, which means he's more vulnerable to just be getting killed. Because him having a Satanic and Flak Cannon is allowing him to just fully heal himself. His talent for health went down by 25. His 3 Flak Cannon attacks was replaced with Flak Cannon damage, which was his 20. So they swap, which they love doing. They moved the attacks down and moved the damage up, but the damage was nerfed in the process, making a level 20 Gyro just worse if they go for these talents, which is nice. Because 40 Flak Cannon damage is too much. And his 25 talent that makes Flak Cannon cooldown reduced was decreased by 1. It's basically trying to make it so that he can't use Flak Cannon as often here and here, as well as making it do less damage when you get the talents, which is really nice to see. I mean, there are minor changes, all things considered. Will Gyro still be played basically the same? Yes. But he'll just be worse at it, and I like that. Hoodwink finally got a buff to the early game stun on Bushwhack. Bushwhack does not stun long enough, so a 0.15 increase to stun is minor, all things considered. But it matters, because I honestly swear that Bushwhack hits you at level 1 and you're just like, oh, I'm gone. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's nothing. So I'd like to see this. Even though I hate being stunned by Bushwhack, it's a skill shot, and it should stun for longer. Sharpshooter is cheaper. That's minor. I don't think it's going to affect anything. I mean, it's nice, but, like, whatever. Invoker finally got some good nerfs that I think are needed. Base health regen went down by 0.5, making him easier to kill. Wex movement speed went down by 0.2% per level of Wex. Also needed. He's slower now. Tornado does 20 less damage, and the EMP doesn't have any linger. So I noticed this the other game I played against an Invoker. He casted EMP with the Ags, and it after the EMP went off, I was still being pulled in, and I didn't realize that was a mechanic. That was new to me. I was like, wait, isn't it over? And I was like being pulled back for a little bit, 0.5 seconds. So they got rid of that, which is good, because I hate that. I don't get it. Like, it's already over. Like, it shouldn't keep pulling me. And if you become debuff immune with like a BKB after EMP is created, I guess there was an issue where it was still slowing you. Now you will properly get rid of the slow and be able to keep walking. because it doesn't pierce debuff immunity. So that's good. Jakiro, which is, I think, fine. Buffs. Mana cost decreased on Dual Breath, just at the early levels, which is really nice because he does have some mana problems early. And Liquid Fire went up by 5 at all levels of damage, which is going to affect his push on towers as well as his ability to kill heroes. I think that's nice. It didn't dramatically change anything, but just like quality of life, just playing Jakiro will be just a little easier. Legion, they just hit her talents. They didn't want her to do as much damage on overwhelming odds, and they didn't want her Moment of Courage to proc as often. That's fine. I don't think that changes much at all. It's like whatever. Lion has early level Hex be harder to hit, meaning cast range. It's at 550 now, which is just a 75 reduction, but it does scale back up to where it used to be. So I'm going to remember that number 550 because it's something later that was relevant. So that just hurts early game Hex. But people usually take Earth Spike anyway, so like, eh. Lone Druid, who I don't see anymore. Base armor increased by 2. Ouch. Spirit Link's attack speed goes up by 4, 3, 2, 1. That's minor. Just, they're trying to get him back in the meta a little slowly because he's annoying. I hate him, so I don't want to see that. That's a minor change, though. I mean, the base armor is nice because it's easier for him to do his job, but it's not... He's usually not being hit because he's ranged anyway. Magnus. Base attack range increased by 50. So, Magnus is being played right now as a 2 and a 1 that I see him. It's because he gets to increase his own damage so much that he can just buy things like Echo Saber, a Daedalus, things like that, blink in and just attack you, just like go to town. So increasing his attack range by 50 makes this way stronger. I'm sure my friend Nettie, who plays Magnus as a 2, is going to love this because it just makes it so much easier to trade, number 1, in lane if you're facing someone else melee, but fight as well. It's harder to get away from him, especially since you get slowed by an Echo Saber as well as other such abilities, like he can Q you and bring you a little closer, then hit you again. That's a really big change. This is like a dramatic change for Magnus. And I hate it, but, you know, it's fine. They really want a lot of melee heroes to have this high attack range. I feel like they've been doing this to a couple people slowly over time. His reverse polarity increased its pull radius by 20, so 20 increased radius on reverse polarity is huge. Minor, 20 by itself isn't huge, but like it's already huge. So increasing it by 20 makes it way easier to get those big 5-man reverse polarities that you're looking for. Same idea of Axe getting his call increased by 10. They're making some of these big grabbing abilities better, and I actually like that. It makes team fight heroes more rewarding, which they already are, more rewarding, so I love to see these sorts of things. Magnus is way better now. Even as a support, he's way better, which I don't usually see him as a support ever anyway, but because of the increased ults. But a 3 Magnus is much better too. Meepo, turn rate improved. I believe that a turn rate being improved does make you turn faster. I forget how turn rate works. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna consult the stats here. Dota 2 turn rate. So make sure I understand it. Turn rate is expressed as in radians per 0.03 seconds. Okay, so higher turn rate would in fact make you turn faster. I'm almost positive. I'm 80% sure. Okay, so Meepo turns faster. So which is nice for Meepo. It makes it easier for him to like kite with all his Meepos. And Mega Meepo doesn't get canceled in a dumb way if you're banished, hidden, or untargetable, so it's really nice that too. I don't see Meepo ever, so it's not going to affect any of my games, but it's nice to see that Meepo is getting some love on his turn rate, because it's just easier for him to like turn with his Meepos if you have good micro skills, which I don't. Where Deadshot finally got a damage buff, 25 at all levels. I was waiting for that. It felt like it didn't do enough. Pierce the Veil's bonus attack damage also increased by early by 20, 10, 0. So it's just nice to see that she can actually kill people early, which is kind of the point. Also, her talent for Deadshot cast range increased by 100, which is pretty notable. So it's just nice, some nice buffs to her. I mean, I think that Deadshot damage is probably the biggest actually, but early game kills at level 6 with Pierce is also really nice to see. So you know, Muerta's already kind of in the meta. I see her as a 2 typically, so it's nice to see that she'll just be a little bit more viable because I actually like Muerta. Naga got some nerfs to make me less likely to play her. Base health regen went down by 0.25. Everyone's getting base health changes. So, harder for her to sustain. She has good armor, though. And mana cost of Mirror Image went up by 5 at all levels. I mean, minor stuff, but just hurts her even more. She's already a difficult-to-play hero, and she already has some problems against certain heroes, like Earthshaker and stuff. And it's like, ugh, you're gonna nerf small things more. It's like, ugh. Okay, one of my favorite changes coming in. Base agility decrease of 6 on Nature's Prophet. Thank God. 6 less attack speed and 1 less armor, right? So he just doesn't attack as fast, doesn't have as much armor when he trades. Huge nerf. Love that. That by itself already would have made me happy. Added visual effect for the damage area of Sprout. I don't know what that looks like yet, but cool. And trees created by Sprout now provide one-time healing when consumed with a Tango, i.e., you can use a Tango and you get healing off of it. The problem was you could just be like, oh, I'll get Tangos and I'll just eat the Sprout, right? But it's like, oh, you don't get any healing from it, so you're nerfing your own healing. So it's like, oh, I gotta get a Clawing Blade even if I'm a 5. Now it's like, no, you can just get Tangos, it's fine. You'll just heal off of it. And that by itself is such a big deal. This is so big. Nerfs to Sprout in general. Agility nerf that's dramatic. Thank God. Now he won't be as strong of a 4, which is what I was looking for. Necrophos got base armor, which I don't understand at all. He's already really tanky. And his 15 talent that gives him more heals for him and his allies went up by 10 as well. So it's like, ugh. I don't want to see a tankier Necrophos, but this means that he'll be more viable, of course, because more armor means he's not as countered by right-click heroes when he isn't using his ghosting ability. So that means he's just super strong at all times, and it's annoying. Alright, Nyx Assassin. You thought he was going to get buffs. Ha! What a joke. Early game intelligence multiplier damage increased dramatically by 1.5. It's the same late, though. But it scales up now, so it's better at most levels. Cooldown on Spike Carapace was decreased by 3 at early levels, meaning you can use it more often. Vendetta increases attack range by 75, and its attack animation was increased by 25%, meaning it happens faster. This is really gross. I like to play Nyx, and I would appreciate those things if I was playing Nyx, but man, do I not want to see Nyx against me getting these buffs. Just makes it too easy. It's not like nothing dramatic, it's just annoying. Ogre Magi, base health regen was increased by 0.75, it doubled, making him even tankier than he was before, just getting more health at all times, right? Just healing with that base regen. Bloodlust's mana cost was reduced at all levels. 10, 5, 0, 5, right? That's so weird. What a weird mana cost to rescale to, but that's okay. Yeah, okay. Cooldown decreased in Fire Shield by 1 second. That's minor. I mean, it's nice, but it's like whatever. So some small buffs. He doesn't have to spend as much mana. Well, I guess the new mana cost of Bloodlust is more at the last level by 5. So I guess it's a nerf at the end of Bloodlust for mana cost, but for most levels it's better. It's whatever. I don't think it's a dramatic change to Ogre, but it's annoying. Omni-Knight. Mana cost was decreased on Repel at earlier levels, which is nice. The cooldown was decreased dramatically at earlier levels. It went down by 15. Second time they've decreased its cooldown, by the way. At late levels, it decreased by 6. So it just makes that he can use Repel all the time. Hammer of Purity, the mana cost was rescaled to be less early but more late. Same thing that Ogre got. I mean, he spams it in lanes, so that's really sad that it's going to be that cheap. It went down from 40 to 30 at level 1, so that's no thank you on that. That's going to be really aggravating. Get ready for that. Get ready for Omni-Knight to spam Hammer of Purity. Pangolier. Roll Up, which I don't use as often as I should. The cooldown was increased by 10, because I guess Roll Up's really nice. You gain debuff immunity and magic resistance, and it helps during your ult as well, so I understand it. The Swashbuckle cast range, slash range, was decreased by 100 because I guess it was too much. You could slash from anywhere. I agree it was too much. The nerf's sad for me because I do like Pango, but it was needed. I don't have any problem with either of these changes. Phoenix getting the early game nerfs I needed. Attack speed slow went from 80 to 65. I love that. I just don't want Phoenix to be able to slow my attack speed at level fucking 1 so I can't fight if we actually have the numbers on them. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, we're a 3v2, you kill them, and Phoenix is like, Fire Spear. It's like, oh, I guess we can't attack. Okay. Primal Beast. I wasn't expecting either of these changes. Damage was decreased on Onslaught by 5, 10, 15, 20. So him, charging through just doesn't do as much damage anymore, which is minor. It's physical, though. And Uproar, I guess, was counting damage from Roshan for stacks. It no longer counts damage from Roshan, which I totally understand. So good. Small little Primal nerf. He's really good right now, so I like to see that. It's minor, though. It's not going to change much. You're going to still see Primal in the exact same situations. Base Int on Pugna increased by 2, which means, damage, magic resistance, which I forget about Int all the time, but damage, magic resistance, mana. Decrep, allies get heal amplification much more than they used to. Increases by 5% at all levels, which is really sad. Means he can heal you better if he uses Decrep and then ult you, if you're an ally. And Life Drain's mana cost was decreased by 25 at all levels, making it much easier to cast, which is sad because he already has so much mana that it doesn't even matter. His int gain is crazy. He has like a 4 int gain or something or more. So I don't know why I needed that, but whatever. So Pugna's much better. I think that actually might change how Pugna's played, only because now he can be played as a much more convincing support because the extra 5% heal when he's ulting you, which does what? At level 1 ult is 120, so 5% is 6 more health per second, and I know that sounds like not that strong, but 6, 12, 18, like it starts adding up really fast when it's every second, and keeping you alive while you're fighting. So like if you're a Sven, you had a Pugna just attached to you like that. It's really a big deal. The only nerf on this is you can't be BKB'd when he decreps you, because you can't do both. Ricky, Tricks of the Trade does more agility damage early. However, Cloak and Dagger got agility nerfs at all levels. It went down by 0.2. So I think it's a nerf overall, for sure. I think it's needed. Ricky does too much damage with his ult, and they've been trying to nerf that for a while now, and I'm glad to see it. He just does too much damage based on agility, and it's not a huge change on 0.2, but it matters. It means every 5 agility he loses an attack speed. And Ricky often builds a lot of agility, so, sorry, attack damage, thing is at speed, but every 5 agility attack damage goes down by 1, basically on the 0.2. So, good. Screw Ricky, I hate him. Rubik, damage reduction on Fade Bolt, because it does reduce the damage that you deal right-click-wise, went down early pretty dramatically, went from 14 to 5, which means that Rubik can't just, trade so well, because one of the things Rubik does is trading like Crystal Maiden. He hits you with Fade Bolt and then he right-clicks you. Because if you try to right-click back, you don't do enough damage. So he'll always out-trade you, and that's kind of the point, right? So now that you've reduced it from 14 to 5, he might not be the better trader now. So you might be able to out-trade the Rubik anyway, because it's just not reducing your damage nearly enough, which is really sad for Rubik, but good. He's too oppressive, and I like that. Sand King. Base armor was increased by 1. That's needed. Sand King just did not feel tanky enough, considering his role of having to be in your face. Cast range and Burrow Strike went up by 25, 50, 75, 100, which is dramatic, making it much easier for Sand King to catch you, as well as Sand King to get out, because remember, he can use Burrow Strike to get away from you as well. So the 100 change at level 4 is pretty fucking dramatic. I love this. I love this change, because I like Sand King a lot. His talent for Sandstorm movement speed was also increased from 25 to 50, making him move super fast in Sandstorm at 15 if he takes that talent. Which is pretty good actually now. I might even take it over Caustic. These are nice changes to Sand King. It's just going to make him much more viable with trading because he has extra armor. He won't die as easily in lane because the cast range increase in Burrow Strike. He can go on more. It increases his ability to go on team fights because now he can blink and Burrow Strike really far. So he can set up from easier situations as well as potentially catch another hero in it, because sometimes you catch heroes and you want to end up in the middle and you can't quite catch that extra hero who's in the same line, but you just can't get them. So now maybe you can. You get everybody. This is one of the bigger changes. I think Sand King is looking really sweet. Hex's cast range was increased by 50 on Shadow Shamans. That's why I said they remember 550. So now they're in line. Line's Hex was a way longer cast range. Shadow Shaman's Hex was way too low. The difference between them is that Lion's Hex, I believe, is a longer Hex, but Shadow Shaman's gives damage amp. And they're different cooldowns and stuff. So, glad to see the cast range increase in Shadow Shamans. It did feel a little bit restrictive. Cooldown his ult went down by 20. It's now statically 110. 20 at the early levels. It just like went to its best cooldown basically, which is really nice because his ult felt like it wasn't up enough. I play Shadow Shaman as a support sometimes for Nettie, and I feel like I want to push, and it's like, oh, I'm still waiting. Oh, I'm still waiting all the time because he should, in theory, if you're playing a pushing kind of game, use it all the time. Like as soon as it's up, it's like, let's push, let's throw it on tower. That's the point. So good for Shadow Shaman. Some nice quality of life stuff. Skywrath Mage, base attack speed was decreased by 10. It's because he already trades so well with Cube. He doesn't need base attack speed. I think it was already gross. So I'm glad to see him get nerfed in that regard because he doesn't need it. It's like, what does he need it for, right? He already hits you so hard with his spells. Like, does he need to attack really fast too? No. So good. Take it away. Sniper, passive bonus range on take aim was increased by 30, 20, 10, 0. It just means that early levels of take aim give you more attack range than they used to, which is actually really nice because sometimes I do take aim very quickly. I take headshot take aim now. That's what I've been doing. And so I'll really appreciate the extra 30 attack range at level 2, basically. Because Sniper needs to be oppressive. If you're playing like a 1 Sniper, which I do sometimes play, although people don't love it, 2 is kind of a better position for him sometimes, but if you're playing a 1 Sniper, you need to be oppressive to the enemies. You need to be smacking the shit out of them, the whole lane. And if you are not smacking the shit out of them because they're out of range, you're kind of not winning the lane. Because if they're ranged and they can stay back far enough to just still try to contest farm and take their farm, it's like, no, it's not worth it now. You need to be able to push them out. And getting an extra 30 attack range kind of does help that, to be honest with you. Because now you could be just close enough to hit them, but not close enough that they can hit you back. And that's kind of the point, right? His damage on ult also went up by 50 at all levels. Because I think they were realizing that even though they added the component where he does his own damage as well, it wasn't quite what they were hoping. And I agree. When I used ult, it didn't feel super impactful. So I'm glad to see it get a little bit more damage. Especially at 6. So I think this was definitely needed. So Sniper is definitely getting a little bit better early as well as the better Assassinate. Don't think it'll change how often he's played because he still has weaknesses to him. He's really slow. But I definitely myself will play more Sniper with that in consideration. He now looks like a little bit better of a 1. Spirit Breaker, my love. I play him all the time when I play ranked. Charge bonus speed was increased by 25 at all levels. Love it. Love that. Need that. More damage on the actual bash that he hits you with when he hits you or runs through you. Minorly, but still, like, yes, let's go, right? And also fix some issue where it wasn't updating if you had a slow and it wore away. I never saw that, but I guess it might have happened. So that's nice too. Still changing a bug that happened. Nether Strike does 25 more damage at all levels. That's also really nice because it's the main way that he kills you. He charges in, hits you a couple times, then ults, and ideally you die. Or you ult you, then he hits you and you die. So increasing it by 25 is just a nice way to increase the chances of that happening. Minor, but still. Any other talent that gives him attack damage, I never do it, personally. I think his 15 talent on the cooldown reduction of Bulldoze feels better, but increasing it by another 5, 40 to 45, like, I might like that. I might think about it. I mean, it makes it more tempting, right? Because there has to be a number, right? When you look at like, oh, but cool, you know, Bulldoze is such a strong ability and reducing the cooldown is so strong. There has to be a number where you change that, right? Maybe you're like, oh, 40, 45 isn't the number. What if it was 50? What if it was 75? What if it was 100? What if it was 500? Right? There has to be a number somewhere where this amount of damage is worth it, where it's like, oh, like, I'll take the damage. And maybe it's already there. Maybe everybody besides me was already taking the damage anyway and it was working for them. I don't know. But I'm just saying that 5 increase, we're getting much closer to the mark for myself where I would take that talent, and I love that. It gives me options. Because it didn't nerf the other talent. I could still just take 3 Bulldoze cooldown if I want to, which just increase the chances that maybe the other one might be a better option, and I like options. So these are really nice changes to Spirit Breaker, just around the map more frequently, better ults. You know, I love that. Sven. I actually, funny enough, I've only seen a couple Svens, but I've been having a bad time with them. I've also done well as him, so I get it. Cooldown was increased on his his stun by 3 seconds at the early levels, but scales back to the same. It makes him less oppressive in lane, which is good. God's Strength, the slow resistance, instead of scaling to be better, just stays at his base amount of 30, so it's easier to slow him. And the cooldown of God's Strength went up by 5 seconds at all levels. That's minor, but still, makes it a little bit of a better downtime. Meaning it's easier to take advantage when he doesn't have God's Strength up. So I like this. I mean, they're minor changes, but they're definitely going to make it a little easier to land against this Sven, because I did find he threw stun at me all the time. So I like to see Stormhammer come out less. his ult be a little bit down for less. This is really good ability to take advantage. Terrorblade, one of my favorite changes as well. Base damage decreased by 2. Thank goodness. Terrorblade's the kind of hero that's been aggravating me because whenever I lane against a Terrorblade, he just seems to just always have enough damage that he never cares and always gets the last hits. His attack speed's high, his armor's high, so he doesn't get off the wave, and his damage is high. But now with the base damage coming down by 2, it's a little easier potentially to get some of those last hits for myself and deny some of those hits. Just a little bit more. It's minor, like it looks minor. It's like 2 damage, right? But sometimes it really does matter. Sometimes that 2 damage means that when I'm going to deny the creep, he can't stop me. When I'm going to last hit, he can't stop me. It depends on those exact health levels and which hero I'm playing as, but it matters. He had a talent for health, but also got nerfed 25, which is, it matters. I think most Terrorblades take the health, to be honest with you. I'm not sure. So it's nice to see a little nerf. Treant Protector. Mana cost of Nature's Grasp is now always its maximum, making it sad. The cooldown of Leech Sheet increased early, but goes back to the same by a whole 6 seconds, too. That's really sad. And Overgrowth's cooldown now is 20 seconds worse at level 1 and has to scale back to its good value. Good nerfs on Tree. I see too many Treant Protectors. I'm glad to see that he's going to have some problems with cooldowns in general and mana costs just to make his life difficult. This one I don't understand. Undying's Tombstone, what I think it means. So Tombstone vision range was decreased from 1500 to 1200 on all levels. When you say vision range, I don't think they mean vision of the Tombstone, because that wouldn't make sense. What I think this means is the Tombstone's ability to see, exactly, the zombie spawn radius. It says it, okay. If you actually hover over the ability, it says zombie spawn radius 1200. Good. This huge nerf to Tombstone. 1500 was way crazy, right? That's nuts. Now it's 1200, huge nerf. Because now that means that you can be, within that 12 to 1500 and no longer have zombies spawning on you and actually cast your abilities and stuff. Or if you're running away, once you get to 1200, you'll won't have any extra zombies spawning on you, which you would before, especially if you're getting slowed by zombies. So, I'm really happy to see that. I'm glad to see the nerf to Tombstone. It was needed. Magic Missile's Aghanims, which lets it hit an extra unit. Instead of going for its full cast range, it's only 75%. So that means once it hits the first person, it searches, is there another target? Instead of searching for it in a full cast range worth from that target, it's only 75% of the cast range from that target, making it less likely to stun everybody. And I think that's really good. This is a really strong shard, so good. Wave of Terror's mana cost was increased to always be its maximum, making it harder for Venge to spam it in lane. It's minor. I mean, obviously it's only 40 mana at its max, so whatever. But when Venge is spamming Magic Missile, the whole lane, it makes it harder to also use Wave of Terror. And the Vengeance Aura's a bonus attack damage percentage went down by 0, 1, 2, 3. That's minor, obviously 3%. But if your core is clicking for 200, 3% is 6 damage. If they're clicking for 400, it sounds crazy, but it absolutely happens. You know what I mean? That's another 12, I think, is whatever I said, number-wise. It just matters. It's just, nice. It's nice to see people just not have quite as much damage with the Vengeance Aura being an addition. So these nerfs will not see Vengeance played any less. It's just, she won't be as good when she is, which is nice. Still playable, though, for sure. Warlock got a strength gain decrease of 0.2, making him slightly less tanky. I mean, good. Fatal Bond's original duration is much less. It's 6 seconds less. That's to scale up to 25, which is nice. So early in lane, it won't make you as long on the Fatal. And the upheaval attack speed per second on allies was decreased by 10. So it's less attack speed every time. It's per second, so that'd be 2, 4, 6, 8. Less attack speed as they're standing in upheaval. I mean, I don't think this changes as much as I would hope. I want them to nerf the imps, to be honest with you. But what are you gonna do? Weaver, the swarm does more damage when it's biting you. It goes 0, 2, 4, 6. Yeah. I mean, that's minor. It's just nice for Weaver, because the swarm doesn't feel like it does enough damage, so we'll see if this actually feels like it's more. The swarm really just does the armor reduction, where it's hitting you for armor reduction as it bites you. That's what feels meaningful, but now that it actually does damage, that's really nice to see, because I think Weaver does need a buff to the swarm, personally. Wind Ranger. Base agility increased by 2. That's 2 attack speed, 1/3 of an armor, as well as the fact that she's a universal hero, so part of damage. I believe that'd be 1 damage. Base int increased by 3. Mana pool, magic resistance, and also about 1 to 2 damage. Which means that Wind Ranger at base has, I think, 3 more damage. I don't know the exact math here, but about 2 to 3 more damage right off the gate, as well as all the benefits from the attack speed and the mana pool and the magic resistance and part of armor. As well as Gale Force costs 50 less when she gets her shard. I think this is really cool for Wind Ranger. I do think she's already seeing play, but not as much as she has once, because she got a nerf on some other items that she was building being worse. So I really like to see the change here, where she just gets a little bit of love in the early game, the base stats basically. So good. Winter Wyvern got a base armor increase of 1, which is super good for Winter Wyvern because she already trades so well. Base mana regen was increased by 0.25. That's minor, but like nice, I suppose. It's cool. Arctic Burn's cooldown was reduced by 12 seconds at level 1. It scales to the same as it did before. Here's the thing about this. It's funny to me because I wish that they reduced the cooldown at the max level, which sounds funny to say because I actually hate Arctic Burn. But if you did, the Ags is worse because now, you already have such a low cooldown. Why bother every attack getting Arctic Burn? But unfortunately, at 20 seconds at the max being the same, they're still going to buy the Ags all the time. So all my supports are still going to... all my Winter Wyverns in my games are still going to go Arctic Burn and lose me games because they never seem to do anything. Which is just annoying, but whatever. You will get harassed by Arctic Burn much more in lane now, though. That's really annoying. That's going to actually get a lot more Winter Wyverns as supports as well. Witch Doctor. The cast point was decreased by 0.15, making it faster to cast Cask. I don't know if any of you have ever been Witch Doctor and gone to throw Cask and then just been stunned and it just doesn't come out. That's less likely to happen now because it happens faster, which is really nice. Death Ward does less damage late by 20, which is really a lot, actually. Because Death Ward does a lot of damage, right? It's pure. 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, right? As it's hitting you, you're taking way less damage. That's a dramatic nerf. It's still strong, don't get me wrong, but dramatic nerf. I didn't expect that at all. Good. Bye, Witch Doctor. He's still going to be played, but still. Lightning Bolt on Zeus has an increased 0.15 second mini stun. I think that's totally unnecessary, and I don't get it. Thunder God's Wrath cooldown was decreased to always be its best, 120, and the mana cost was decreased by 50, 25-0, making the early levels easier to cast so he can be relevant in fights. I honestly just don't like Zeus right now because of his shard being the way people want to play him, and I totally understand why. It does seem to actually work. I just don't like it. If I want to play Zeus, I want to play him as a caster, and they seem to, at least this patch is focusing on his casting abilities, but I just don't like Zeus right now for those changes. So going through the patch real quick, we've done this for 47 minutes, so I'll take about 2 minutes as a little recap. I think the biggest changes this patch are going to be Axe in general, just getting some love to his radius on Berserkers and his ult buff. Brood, you might see if you're in a higher bracket. She might push a lot faster because the spawn Spiderlings, but we'll see about that. Clinks might come back into the meta. He's going to receive some love. Oh, Gyrocopter isn't going to be the only core to play. That might be it. Oh, Magnus is going to be played all the time. You're going to see a ton of Magnuses. I think those are the biggest changes, to be honest with you. There's other heroes that got love for sure, got hate, but those are the ones that stick out to me as being immediately evident. But all the same, we'll have to find out. I am glad to see this happen so quickly after 7.3b. So what? That was 8.15, so they waited 23 days, less than a month. They did a mini patch in less than a month. I think that's really good. This is what I want to see from Dota. No matter if you love or hate any of the changes in here, less than a month cycle for another update, especially one that has so much stuff, is definitely looking good for Dota patches in general. As a note, for anybody who doesn't know, because I think I wasn't on stream when this happened, but it did update my behavior score. I'm now over 10k. It did a mini update, just updated it. It did its full. Yeah, it just updated. It didn't give me a conduct report, but it did the thing. So now I can actually coach, which is funny because I couldn't do that before. And I can ping ally abilities and items. I don't really need to do that terribly, because, like, obviously if you did that, that would be considered... most people do it inflammatory, but I do not intend to do so. Either way, I'm going to end this video. Appreciate you guys for watching. I'll see you all next time.